Hey guys, so what we're going to be talking about today is prepositions of direction, and it matches up with the note pages in your packet, page 53 through 56. So if you could find those pages, hit pause here until you find it and then hit play again. So we've been talking about prepositions a little bit, brought them up towards the end of last week, and the reason that we did that was so that you kind of remembered them a little bit. We're going to look at some exceptions to the uses and specifically how they are used for giving directions. You might have seen in your photo roman from earlier that the characters use different prepositions when they gave directions, like these examples here. We have George says, wir müssen nach Kreuzberg zurück. So he used nach to say to a city. And then later on he said, wir sollten über die Straße gehen und dann in diese Richtung weitergehen. So über kind of makes sense for over the street, and in diese Richtung for in this direction or towards this location. So let's look at nach specifically. You use nach with geographical place names to talk about traveling to a destination. So nach is a dative preposition, remember that. You use in the accusative if the place name includes a definite article. So, for example, fliegt ihr morgen nach Istanbul? Istanbul is not a der, die, das, it's not the Istanbul, it's just Istanbul, so you're going to use nach to say to Istanbul. Compared to, wir sollten schon immer in die Türkei fahren. Or sorry, that says, wir wollten schon immer in die Türkei fahren. So Türkei always has die in front of it. It always uses the article die Türkei. So using in because it has a definite article to say to Turkey. And because this sentence uses fahren, that means that it is change of location accusative for that two-way preposition. So it stays in die Türkei. I gave you a list in your notes for countries and regions that have an article. One of them is die Schweiz. Die Schweiz is Switzerland. Die Pfalz is a region in southwestern Germany that includes the region of Rhineland-Pfalz. Die Türkei, like in the example, that's Turkey. If you're talking about going to the European Union, die Europäische Union. Die Vereinigten Staaten is a way to say the United States. You might hear people still say die USA, but because we are the United States, we're going to use the definite article. Die Niederlande is the Netherlands. Der Irak is Iraq. Der Libanon is Lebanon. Der Sudan is Sudan. Das Tessen is the southernmost region of Switzerland that borders Italy. Das Alsace is the eastern region of France that borders Germany's Rhine region. Und das Baltikum is the Baltic states. So all of these places, these are the most common ones that use a definite article. So if you're talking about going to these places, you're always going to use in to say to. Ich gehe in die Schweiz. Ich gehe in die Türkei. Ich fahre in den Irak. So remember, change of location's accusative. But if you're telling me that you are already in these places, then it changes to location is dative for using that two-way preposition in. So if you are in Switzerland, ich bin in der Schweiz. If you're in Turkey, ich bin in der Türkei. The United States is plural, so die will change to den. Ich bin in den USA. So remember, if you're going to these places or you're in these places, you're going to use in, and you have to remember that the whole cola lid rule that we reviewed last week. At the bottom of the page here on page 53, some examples of using nach to say to. So most cities, countries, states, you're going to use nach unless it has a definite article. So example, ich fahre nach Deutschland. Ich reise morgen nach Österreich. Du bist nach Paris gefahren. Ist nach Pittsburgh geflogen. Flip really quickly to page 56 in your packet. This is where I put this little warning that the book gives us for our notes. Remember that nach Hause means that you're going to your home, while zu Hause means that you are at home. These break the usual rules, so that's why it's kind of this warning in a red box. That means you cannot use zu Hause to say that you're going to someone else's home. So zu Hause means you're at your home, nach Hause means you're going to your home. If you're talking about being at someone else's house, you're going to call it das Haus, not Hause. Hause is home, whereas Haus is just house. So in your notes, ich bin zu Hause means I am at home. Ich gehe nach Hause, I am going home. Let's go back to page 54 in your notes now. The first preposition we're going to look at here is zu. And if you remember, zu is a dative preposition. So if you remember your song, the aus bei Mitternacht, seid von zu, gegenüber außer, immer mit dem Dativ, dem, der, dem. Zu is a dative preposition. And you're going to use it to talk about going to a destination within a town or city like a store or a building. You can also use zu with a dative personal pronoun or a person's name to say that you're going to their home or business. So if you're going to a store or a building or to the business or home of a person. So looking at these examples, dieser Bus fährt zum Einkaufszentrum. Now it is zum because zu is to the mall, and it's dem Einkaufszentrum. So zu dem got shortened to zum. Now that is your choice. If you want to shorten it to zum, I will always accept zu dem. Another example to the right, ich muss noch schnell zu Aldi. I have to go quickly, schnell, zu Aldi, to Aldi. So Aldi is a store, so we're going to use zu. Look at the bottom left example. Die Fahrt zu meinen Großeltern, the drive to my grandparents. So meine Großeltern is plural. So plural dative meine becomes meinen, just like die becomes den. So zu meinen Großeltern. So this was to a person, so we can still use zu. And then the example to the right, used zur Zahnärztin, so to the dentist. In this case, Zahnärztin is a female dentist. So instead of die Zahnärztin, zu made it zu der Zahnärztin. And zu der can be shortened to zur. So we will use zu for to a store or a building, to a person or a person's business. We already talked about using in for situations where you're going to a country or a state or a city that uses a definite article at the very start when we were doing our notes for nach versus in. But there are some other instances where you would use in. So remember, in is a two-way preposition, so it'll be accusative if you're going somewhere, because change of location accusative, and we're going to use it to go talk about going into a building. To will get you to the building, but in gets you actually inside that building. Into a geographical area, like going into the mountains, or to a certain street. So if you're going into a building, example like in die Bibliothek, so you're going into the library. Going into the laundromat, in den Waschsalon. So it's der Waschsalon, but change of location accusative. Der became den. Mia geht in den Waschsalon. Here, bottom left, there's an example of going into a geographical area, like going into the mountains. The mountains are die Berge. So wir fahren in die Berge. And if, for example, you wanted to say that you are already in the mountains, location is dative, so it would become in den Bergen. Ich bin in den Bergen. But if you're going there, wir gehen in die Berge. And then if you wanted to tell someone to turn onto a certain street, you'd use in. So the example here is so formal, biegen Sie links ab, so turn to the left, in die Waldstraße, into the Waldstraße. The next preposition we're going to look at is auf. Auf still is one of those two-way prepositions, just like in, so you have to remember the cola lid rule. Change of location accusative, location is dative. We're going to use auf in the accusative to talk about movement toward a horizontal surface, to an open space, or a public building. So, examples of that, legen Sie die Papiere auf meinen Schreibtisch. So to lay or put the papers on my desk. My desk is a horizontal surface, so the paper is moving towards that horizontal surface. So I want to put it on the desk on a horizontal surface, auf, and accusative, der becomes den, so meinen Schreibtisch. Going to an open place like a marketplace. Am Sonntag gehen wir auf den Markt. So auf, to an open place like a market, it's der Markt, so der became den, because change of location accusative. And then public buildings. The only two public buildings that you have to worry about from our vocabulary list are die Post and die Bank. So going to these buildings, if you're going there, you have to use auf die Post or auf die Bank gehen. If you are there, then it's dative, because location is dative for two-way prepositions. So if you're at the post office, ich bin auf der Post. If you're at the bank, ich bin auf der Bank. So the example we have on our note page, könntest du bitte auf die Post gehen und Briefmarken kaufen? Could you please go to the post office? So change of location accusative, auf die Post. You also use auf for the idiomatic expression auf eine Party gehen, to go to a party. So anytime you're going to a party, it's auf eine Party gehen. If you're at a party, location is dative, so ich bin auf einer Party. Die becomes der. And then we have one more example, bottom right, about going to an open space, going out into the countryside, auf das Land. So morgen fahren Herr und Frau Meier auf das Land. And it has shortened it to aufs Land. So aufs is how you can shorten auf das. Again, you can do that, but I will never hold it against you just to say auf das. We only have a few left here. Now we're on page 55 in the notes. The first preposition here is an, which again is one of those two-way prepositions, so the cola lid rule matters here. It's going to be in the accusative to talk about movement toward a vertical surface. So the example, Emma hängt ihre Poster an die Wand. So she's hanging or putting her posters up on the wall. It's the change of location process of putting it up onto the wall, so it's accusative. If the poster is on the wall, then location is dative. Ihre Poster ist an der Wand. You would also use an to talk about movement toward a body of water. So if we're going to the beach, der Strand, change of locations accusative, so der will change to den. So im Sommer gehen wir immer an den Strand. You made those maps for class that we were driving our little cars around, and your map had a river. So if you wanted to tell someone to go to a river, you would use an, and it's der Fluss, so if it's accusative, change of location, der will change to den. So you might have told someone, fahr an den Fluss, drive to the river. And those are the two instances where you're going to use an. for movement toward a vertical surface like the wall or going up to the board in class, or movement towards a body of water. Über is the preposition here that I think can be the most confusing, just because of some of the exceptions for it. So über is, again, one of those two-way prepositions, so you always have to think about kolla lid, change of location accusative, location is dative. So when we're talking about motion, it makes sense to use über to go over a bridge, across the road, because you're going over the road. But one other way to use it is to say like that you're going by way of something. So if I'm going by way of Munich to get to Salzburg, I would use über. Sie fahren über München nach Salzburg. So they're driving by way of München because they're going kind of over München by way of it to get to the next city of Salzburg. You might use it locally, like say you're going to the South Hills, but you need to drive kind of by way of downtown to get there. Wir fahren über Pittsburgh nach Mount Washington. You'd also use this for going over a mountain. Maybe you have to drive over a mountain to get into Austria, for example. Wir reisen über die Berge nach Österreich. Or wir past tense sind über die Berge nach Österreich gereist. So we traveled over the mountains nach Österreich to Austria. It also makes sense to use this to say that you're hanging something above something else, like über das Sofa, if you're hanging a picture above the sofa. If the picture is already above the sofa, now its location is dative. Das Bild ist über dem Sofa. So those are the different ways you might use über. Going over something, which makes sense, over a street, over a bridge, over a mountain, crossing a street, crossing a mountain. But the one to really remember is that it can also mean by way of. Aus is one of our last prepositions here, so this is kind of a little bit more going back to that maybe 7th or 8th grade German you had where you learned to say where someone was from, like ich komme aus Amerika. It's used to express where someone is from. Aus is a dative preposition, so if the place has a definite article, make sure you're using the dative case, like we had that list of countries and places that have definite articles on page 53 in your notes. So if you come from die Schweiz, aus is dative, so ich komme aus der Schweiz. The example here, the best chocolate comes from Switzerland, so it's aus der Schweiz, because aus is dative. If there is no article, you don't have to worry about it. Unsere Eltern kommen aus Österreich. Our parents are from Austria. There's no definite article there. You don't have to remember to change something to dative. So just plain old aus. The last little bit of notes here tells us what to do with modals, modal verbs like müssen, möchten, können, dürfen, sollen, wollen. For these, if you're using them with prepositions of direction, sometimes Germans kind of omit the extra verb or the infinitive afterwards, like the example here, wir müssen nach Hause. In English, we would say we have to go home. The Germans kind of drop the go because it's implied like we have to home. That's where we need to be. It's where we need to go. So they kind of drop it. I will never hold it against you if you say wir müssen nach Hause gehen, or just plain and simply wir müssen nach Hause. Same thing, ich will ins Bett, I want to go to bed. They drop the go, but you can always say ich will ins Bett gehen, but it is not wrong to just drop the gehen with this modal verb and say ich will ins Bett, I want to go to bed.